What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Charles, owner of mXrevival and mXrevival.com. And guys, Lectron has been on an absolute killing spree the last couple of years, making brand new product after brand new product for both big and small two-stroke dirt bikes. They've got the new Billetron Micro, the Billetron Mini, the Billetron 38 for big bikes. They even came out with a 39mm Big Air for 300 and up cc big bore bikes. And after all that, they still dropped yet another Lectron product that is called the Lectron Pro Series, and that is what we are going to get into today. So today we'll go over the all-new Lectron Pro Series, talk about what the hell it even is, and also go over some of the features it has that older carburetors, last year's Billetron, older carburetors don't have. And by the way, if you need any additional information on everything I just spouted off, you can find these at LectronFuelSystems.com and mXrevival, as we are also a proud dealer of Lectron products. Not only that, but Lectron and mXrevival are actually going to give you guys the chance to win one of 4 brand new Lectron carburetors, 3 of which I'll be giving away in our MX Parts giveaways in our Gas MC500 build series. One of those, the 4th one, will actually come in the MC500 that you can win. So I'll leave a link below. Don't leave this video yet. We've got a lot to talk about, but do get excited for that as well. For now, guys, we're going to go ahead and get into this Lectron Pro Series unboxing. I'm going to show you what this carb comes with. We're going to talk about some of the new features. I also have a Billetron here that we're going to set it next to and talk about the differences between the two. So we'll hash all that stuff out. We'll talk about why you might want one of these, why this might be a really good option for you, and in my opinion, the last carburetor you will ever buy. So let's go ahead and hit the bench, unbox the all-new Pro Series. We'll give you the skinny on what's new with this bad boy. After we do that, I'm going to show you guys how to install this new carburetor as well as do a full ride test with you. So a really great video ahead. Let's do it. All right, guys, here we are up on the bench. We've got the all-new Lectron Pro Series. The first thing I noticed when I got this out of the UPS shipping box is that this carb actually came in its own branded product box. Really cool, sleek looking thing. I only mention that because no Lectron carburetor before it that I've received, and we've used a lot of them and built with a lot of them, has ever come in its own packaging. So this is a huge leg up. I think when you see this, this gives the brand a better feel. That's my personal opinion, but kind of exciting, right? You get a little more anticipation rather than opening up a standard brown box and there's your carb. At any rate, I like this packaging. It looks really good. Good job, guys. Open this up. This is kind of how they used to come. You'd open the UPS box and they'd be in this nicely wrapped bag, which is great. But like I said, this kind of takes it to another level in my opinion. So very nice. That didn't work. So we open this sucker up. We have some rod settings, 2-3 rod, starting point, and then you'll also get some paperwork as well. So if you ever make adjustments and you need to go back to your default setting, it's all going to be on your paperwork here. Look at that, 100% discount. I like those. So first up, let's go ahead and get this thing opened, and we'll talk about the difference between the new Pro and the Billetron, which is also relatively new. They look a lot alike, but they are different. And then you guys can also see I have some other carburetors up here. I got a Mikuni and a Keihin. This is very similar to what we're pulling out of the RM today. So I'll go over these a little bit versus these Billetrons and the Pro Series as well. So open this sucker up. It's like a Rubik's Cube. Here we go. Where is it? What am I looking for? The 3rd circuit. Okay, here we go, guys. So at a glance, very similar, right? You got the old Billetron, which this was actually a prototype. I was invited to test before they went live into production. Really cool, great carburetor. But now we have the Pro Series. So what the heck is the difference? You'll notice this carburetor, the old Billetron, like I said earlier, old as in came out in the last 24 months, relatively new still, is lacking this screw right here. Now, if you don't know a lot about Lectrons, and you probably do by this point, is that they are jetless. You do not have to open them up and take them apart and swap brass, aka jets, or all kinds of other funky stuff when you might be chasing a carburetor issue, as is with these standard types over here. We'll get into that, but this carburetor now has 3 circuits in it. Externally adjustable too, I might add. 2 of them are external, 1's internal. This guy here, 2 circuits. Now to understand why they even did this, you need to know a little bit about Lectron history. So briefly, let's go over that. Before the Billetron, there were Lectron Legacy, Lectron H Series, and Lectron HV. And I can't remember the order of the H Series and HV. They were one after the other, but the Legacy was the very old one. Now, this guy, the Billetron, came after all those, and what it aimed to do was fix the soft or lack of bottom end hit that was commonly associated with these Lectron carbs. Now, the lack of boom or hit off the bottom wasn't necessarily a bad thing. You got much more well-metered power. You could always go up a tooth on your rear sprocket if you didn't like it. But this carburetor, the Billetron, not Pro Series, but the first Billetron really fixed that problem. If it was a problem for you, this thing would kind of just take off and go right off the bottom, a lot like a perfectly jetted stock carburetor, which is sometimes hard to achieve. So this was a big deal. This Billetron, to me, bolted this prototype in, felt the hit off the bottom that had gone away or wasn't there on previous models, say RM250s, my 250SX, all that stuff. So this was an awesome carburetor. Now, they've also added on the Pro Series, coming after this original Billetron, this third circuit. This one is specifically focused on the very, very, very bottom end, which I believe they fixed. So I'm very excited to try this. Really cool. I didn't think or wouldn't have guessed that they even needed to do this, this third circuit. So pumped to try this out. Now, the three circuits do what I'm about to explain. So you have one circuit you can adjust externally, adds or deletes fuel off the very, very bottom crack of the throttle. Then you have the metering rod, which sits inside the slide. We'll open one of these up in a second so I can show it to you, but that's sort of how I would describe to people or customers as the 0 to 50% throttle range, throttle opening. So if you needed to tune a circuit and you had an issue, I would say the metering rod I would refer to as 0 to 50% throttle opening. So if there was a little lean rattle there, you know, and it was inside that percentage, 0 to 50, that's what you'd go after, the metering rod. Now the third circuit is called the power jet. That's this top screw here. This would add or delete fuel from 50% onwards. So again, lean rattle at wide open throttle, for example, or maybe it was a little rich and boggy, you would adjust this 50 to 100% throttle. So we have this third screw. I'm stoked to try this. So we're going to try this together, as mentioned. Another thing these new Lectron Pro Series came out with is there's another version of this that actually has a TPS sensor in it. And if you're not familiar with a TPS, basically on all Lectrons up until now, when you delete your old carburetor, say your Keihin or your Mikuni, sometimes you'd have these wires hanging inside your frame that used to go to your old stock carburetor, and I'll show you what those are right now. Those would have been, one, the TPS sensor, which is on the back of this old Keihin. This is a YZ250, RM250, KX250 style carburetor. Mikuni over here, in this case, doesn't have a TPS, so KTM, Honda. But this was one of the things, this connector would be hanging in your bike. Then you had the power jet solenoid. That was the second cable that would just sort of hang free. So on your wiring harness in your bike, you would tape those up, tie them up out of the way. You didn't need them anymore. But like I said, one of these new versions of the Pro Series actually has a TPS. So you can connect your bike's stock wiring harness to your carburetor, your new Lectron Pro Series with TPS. And when I asked what the difference was, I was told you probably won't notice it. So for now and until we test it, if you don't want your wires dangling, get the Pro Series with the TPS. If not, it's never been a problem. You just tape that sucker up. Now, another thing I think is worth mentioning, since the Billetron came out, the original version, you can now use your bike's stock throttle cable, which is really nice. The older, before Billetrons, Lectron had a proprietary cable for those, so some of you remember you'd have to use their cable as well. Now you don't need to do that. However, on the RM250, I think this is also important to note, you can't just throw your stock cable in here because your cable isn't threaded, and I'll show you the difference. Like say for example, YZ250, you can pull this cable out, it's threaded on the top here, and you can thread that right into your new Billetron. And although this carburetor is nearly identical to what comes in an RM250, on the RM, there is a brass insert in the lid of that Keihin that you can't get out, so Lectron created a little adapter for you. So this is what you're going to want if you've got an RM250. All the other Keihin versions or Jap brands, I don't believe need this, but get one just in case, or if you check your OEM lid first and you have a brass insert or an insert that's pressed in, not threaded, you will need this. So otherwise you're going to have an air leak, you're going to have a lean condition, and none of this is going to be very fun for you. You'll be chasing your tail. So there we go. All right, so now why would you even want to go to a Billetron or a Billetron Pro Series versus your stock Mikuni? CR, KTM, or your stock Keihin, Kawasaki, Suzuki, Yamaha. I think the easiest way to answer that is simplicity. So first and foremost, these are jetless. You do not have to swap brass. You do not have to roll your carb sideways, pull jets out of it on the side of the track or trail, like these bad boys if you're having trouble with them. So quite a few more circuits inside stock carburetors than there are in the Lectrons. And while the Lectron does have some circuits, most of the adjustments are external, and most of the time they don't even need adjustment. You plug these things in, you set the idle. They've got this pretty well figured out. So simplicity and ease of use are going to be one thing. Other things I notice running every Lectron I've ever had, whether it was an old school one or these brand new ones, fuel consumption went down. I was surprised by that. It's not something that's advertised, but it is something that commonly happened. Every time I had a Lectron, my fuel tank would last a lot longer. A lot of the times you get increased power, and that's not because you can't get one of these to run right, but most of the time, guys, your carburetors aren't tuned right, and so your bike's running rich, maybe too lean. The Lectron only takes what fuel it needs, and it also self-compensates for elevation and temperature, so it's using what it needs, when it needs it, and in turn tends to crispen things up, liven up the power band, produce a more linear and progressive power curve. And that also to me always felt like the RPMs were stretched out quite a bit longer because you don't have all the different jetting circuits in here that overlap, trying to jive with each other and then not doing so because maybe your specs are off, where these guys seamlessly transition from one circuit to the next as you open the throttle further. So for example, this guy, you have slide size. There's a needle in the slide with a clip in it. You can raise or lower the needle. You have an air screw. You have a pilot jet and a main jet. And so there are a lot of things going on in here, whereas over here you have now the bottom end circuit, the power jet circuit, and the metering rod. And on the two circuit Billetron, you just have the metering rod and the power jet, and that's it. And I told you guys we were going to take a look inside at the metering rod so I can show you what it is, how you adjust it. But they also, the boys at Lectron and girls, went over to a 3mm Japanese style Allen head screw on these lids, so you don't have to monkey around with a Phillips screwdriver anymore like back in the day. That's pretty cool. Slide comes out, and in the slide lives a metering rod. So this guy here is essentially dragging fuel up and into the carbs venturi as the bike's running. Depending on how much you raise or lower this, that will alter your setting, how much fuel you are getting or not. And I have a special tool somewhere, apparently I lost it, that you use to adjust this, basically so you don't put nicks in it. The reason you wouldn't want to do that is because it is a CNC cut metering rod with a flat side on one end. So if you damage that, it's going to affect how it's able to lift fuel or not and screw things up. So you definitely don't want to damage this. Flat side always goes towards the engine. So a brief explanation on that there. Lectron also came out with something they call an easy tuning kit, which instead of these upgraded 3mm Allen head screws, you get these thumb dials, which are really cool. You can just spin these out with your fingers. You don't even need an Allen wrench. Those are probably 30 bucks more, something like that, but they are heaven sent if you do need them on the side of the track or trail. All right, guys, we've got a mess, a big stack of carburetors here. I'm also heavily caffeinated, so if I've gone too fast or you need a little bit more explanation on anything we've touched on because I was going too quickly, drop me a comment below. I'm happy to help answer any questions. For now, enjoy the high-speed version of me. Now we're about to go install this new Pro Series, but before we do that, I just want to go over some of the product features and benefits that have been given to me by the manufacturer, because they're probably going to cover some things I didn't, and also it's nice to get their take on things, their marketing side, why you would want this or not. So I'm going to read you a little quick dealie off the Lectron website, and then we'll be on to the install. We'll be right back after these words from our sponsors. All right, guys, introducing the Lectron Pro Series, a revolutionary high-performance carburetor for two-stroke dirt bikes. This carburetor combines the best of all worlds, integrating 3 easily adjustable fuel circuits that allow you to fine-tune the fuel mixture to achieve your bike's optimal performance. With this unique feature, you can adjust your fuel delivery throughout positions of the power band to achieve optimal air-to-fuel ratio combustion, resulting in increased power and phenomenal throttle response. This carburetor is essential for any leveled rider looking to consistently get the most from their machine and do so with ease. I can attest to that. That is all true. Guys, I've also been told these are raising the horsepower by at least a couple up top. So back to that point we made earlier about maybe your settings being off in your stalker. When the carb gets just what it needs to the engine rather than too much or too little, you're going to have an increase in power. The benefit to you, the customer, is the unique ability to quickly adjust to factors that normally require altering or rejetting to gain peak performance. We talked about that. Ease of use, changing track conditions, riding style, engine load, or new mods like a cylinder head that you might need a different type of fuel for, port and polish, aftermarket pipe, things like that, can now be adjusted for in a few seconds time rather than losing ride time changing jets or settling for suboptimal performance. I like that word, suboptimal. Kind of again, if these aren't running right because your settings are jacked up, then you're going to be wasting time trying to set them up when you can slap one of these in, have a trick looking part, and something that just works as advertised. Feel confident adding aftermarket mods to your bike knowing the headache of changing jets is eliminated. The idle circuit, aka metering rod, delivers precise control over the engine's idle speed, while the low end circuit, externally adjustable, that's the new guy here, the third circuit, can be adjusted to provide a throttle response range from linear and crisp to hitting like a freight train. I'm so excited to try that. If this thing outperforms the first Billetron, my mind will be blown. The top end circuit, externally adjustable, that's the power jet I showed you guys, ensures tunability to deliver maximum horsepower when you need it. An additional standout feature of the Billetron Pro Series is its internal fuel routing, which reduces fuel travel by 30%. That's new to me. This innovative design delivers fuel more quickly and responsively to the engine, giving you improved acceleration and top speed. Again, cannot wait to try this thing. Constructed from high-quality billet aluminum, Billetron Pro Series is built to last and withstand the rigors of off-road riding. Upgrade your dirt bike with Billetron Pro Series and experience next-level reliability and performance that can be achieved day after day, track after track, all at the twist of your fingertips. Okay, that's it. So that wasn't so bad. A lot of the other benefits and features I already talked about, like the thumb dials up top, which is called the Easy Tuning Kit, use of your stock cable, simplicity. Those are the main things here. So guys, let's go ahead and take this brand new Billetron Pro Series. So excited to try it. Install it in the RM250. I'll show you guys how to get your old carb out, and I'll show you how to put this new carb in. And after that, we're gonna head out to Skyline MX in beautiful Boise, Idaho, prepped Thursday night practices, and we're going to ride test this sumbitch. All right, my people, it is going down. Super cool laser etching on this thing. Looks awesome. I like the logos on the sides of this. Let's get it installed. First things first, guys, 4 8mm bolts in your tank, at least on the RM250. Goes very fast, especially when you throw the bolts on the ground. Can't reach that one. Need a little more length for the proper penetration. 3 bolts, 4 bolts. Sucker comes right off. Easy money. If I can do it, anybody can do it. Next up, we've got to pull the subframe. I like to start by removing the clamp or loosening the clamp on the existing carburetor, usually a number 2 Phillips. Then you have 3 connection points on your subframe most of the time. Number 10 down below, 2, and up top, 3. If you guys don't like to use a drill on your carburetor band clamps, Cameron over at Prime MX just came out with these awesome JIS screwdrivers. Link below for you. Number 2 right here. Like a glove, baby. Go ahead and pull that top bolt. Things should come right out. We already had our seat off because I was getting ready to do an air filter for this test. Also had to wiggle this free, the silencer pipe from the head pipe here. Go ahead and get another action shot. Cameron's number 2 JIS screwdriver. Loosen your front band clamp. Now, if you have any dust or debris or dirt chunks up here at this point, you're gonna wanna try and knock those loose, dust them off before you pull your carb out. You don't want that stuff to dislodge, go down into your engine. If you do have that happen, just use a little bit of compressed air and blow out this intake boot, but not too hard because we don't want it to force past your reed pedals in this reed cage. Take your time, wipe it out, whatever you gotta do, just try and avoid it. Now we've also got some connectors to get apart here. We have the power jet solenoid up here. I showed you guys on the bench. Then we have another TPS connector in the back of the carburetor. So I'm gonna go ahead and decouple those. Might need to call in a favor from a cute little pink screwdriver once in a while. Depress this ultra tiny hook style button here. There we go. Pinky never lets me down. And so this is one of 2 connectors. I don't know if you guys can see this one here. I'll show you in a second that we need to cap off. Electrical tape, zip ties, get them out of the way when this comes out, no big deal. Looks like the RM has one of those reusable zip ties up here on the frame as well. Get that loose, it's holding my cables in place. Now at this point, aside from the throttle cable, that should be the only thing holding us up. So we're gonna go ahead and get this sucker pulled out. It's nice and tight in there, that's good. Slide it out to the side. You might have your venting cables or your overflow, hoses holding you up. So drag those out slowly. We're free as a bird. Go ahead and throw a clean shop rag into that intake we were talking about earlier. Make sure you don't get any crap in there. Now we need to get this throttle cable out. There's a little boot right there. And in this case, we're going to need to open the lid and get that thing out of the slide. Back to that Japanese 3mm style bolt on the top of the carburetor that Lectron moved to. Same thing over here, so that's convenient. You kind of have some cross compatibility there between brands, just real cohesive stuff. A slide comes out. There we go, we're on the home stretch. Don't throw your old carb out or anything. That thing's worth a couple bucks on eBay. Getting the cable out, depress this spring, push the cable down to the side and back out, and there you have it. Guys, I cannot wait to try this Pro Series, no joke. Since we know that the cable on the RM is just dropped into the lid rather than threaded in like the YZ, just pull it out. Truth be told, I could use a new cable for this test. It's not showing any tears in the jacket or anything, and I guess like for like, it's better to use what I have, but I probably should replace that cable. It may very well be original for all I know. So we've got our cable adapter for the RM specifically into the lid of the new Pro Series. Give it a light snugging. It's just aluminum. You can strip that very easily, so don't. Installing the cable on the Lectron is similar to that of the Jap style. The cable is going to go into the slide. Screw, lid, gasket, spring, come out, dump your slide. So with your cable loose, the first thing you want to do is slide it through the new Lectron lid. As you can see, cable drops right into that keeper really nicely. Compress the spring. Sometimes it's difficult. When you do, drag that up, pinch it with your fingers and keep it out of the way so you can go ahead and put that cable into the new Lectron slide, hook it right into this hole in the front, and then the spring should keep pressure on it so that it won't fall out. But this is the part on the old Lectron carburetors where you needed to use their proprietary cable. The ball end of the cable fit into the old Lectron slide a certain way, and that's no longer the case. So super nice, one less thing to buy. Go ahead and slide the Lectron slide into your new Pro Series. Make sure, most important part right here, this flat side on the front of this metering rod is facing the engine. So not this way, this way. Flat side facing the engine, which is the smaller hole in the carb body. Go ahead and put your lid screws back in. And if you have one of these little jackets, keeps water from going in, things like that, slide it back down. Pretty much ready to smash that sucker back in there. Make sure you pull that shop rag out of your intake. I've done that before, but inside of my air box, it's even harder to find. Super annoying when your bike doesn't start and you're trying to ride and you're too stupid to figure out why. Go ahead and push that carburetor into your intake boot. Pops in just like stock. Now, there used to be a casting line in the top of the carb that would help you sort of ID what the center line was for keeping this thing mostly straight up and down. Now you just gotta kind of eyeball it. You can get away with a little degree of lean. It's not a big deal at all. Make sure your new Pro Series is pushed all the way into your intake boot. Bust out your JIS screwdriver from Prime MX. Now before we go ahead and button up the rear of this bike, put the subframe back in, we're gonna go ahead and quickly tape up these now open electrical connectors. Use some electrical tape. I like to do one wrap around, break it, one wrap over the top, break it. And now I have a little pro tip for you guys. Rather than breaking the electrical tape on your last go around, use a pair of scissors. When you break the electrical tape by hand, once it cools off, it kind of has a memory. It stretches back and unravels itself. So if you use scissors on the last portion and just simply lay it over, it will not unravel on you and it'll just stay like that indefinitely. So the power jet solenoid is done. I've got the TPS connector in the back here by the shock. This one's a little wider, so I'm gonna do two over the top. Make sure the top is actually closed, not open to air. And then my final pass, use the scissors, can't unravel itself. Now if you need to tie these up somehow, these are still pretty well cut up high, but if yours are longer, just use some zip ties and make sure when you wrap them up, they're not gonna be pinched by your tank or whatever it may be. In my case, everything's pretty much going back right where it was. I'm going to tuck this guy back just a little bit here. I'm happy with the TPS in the back. Can't really go anywhere. I'll go ahead and add one zip tie on the TPS. I got enough length to where I probably should tie it up just a little bit more. We don't want the air boot to hit it, anything like that. There we go. All set. Next, go ahead and move your pile of crap out of the way. Go ahead and move all your vent hoses, back down and in front of your linkage. Lectron gives you plenty of length for these hoses. That's really nice. We are all set there. If you're like me, I don't like any of them to crisscross. It just kind of makes my mind really unhappy. So they're all dressed side by side. Time for that subframe. All right, now if you're stubborn or stupid like me, this can be a bit tricky because I didn't take the silencer off. If you guys are hanging up here, just take your silencer off. It'll help you put this on a whole lot easier, to be honest. In my case, just way too stubborn. And there we go. Pipe is on. Next thing I like to do is grab that top through bolt in the subframe, put that on. If you get lucky or really good like me, your air boot just slid right on. It's looking good on this side, and it's looking almost good on this side. I actually have one of these vent hoses in the way, so I'm just going to drag it up a little bit, pull it to the side, give it a quick wiggle, and we're seated. Go ahead and hand thread your 10mm bolts back in. Use the impact if you like to seat them, but not to tighten them ultimately. Use a ratchet for that. Impact is nice and speedy, that's why I like it. Same thing up top. Moving on to our ratchet. Get a better feel this way, obviously. I'm not going to torque these to spec. Been doing this for a billion years, it feels like. Never lost one, so just don't overdo it, right? You don't want to strip these suckers. Now we can go ahead and put our tank on. 2 more bolts up here in the front. Now we've got just 2 things left to do. We need to cut this line to length, get it installed. We also still need to tighten this lower boot clamp. I'm going to show you where that clamp ended up because I had to rotate it basically straight down. All right, as you guys can see, Lectron provides more than enough hose on these carburetors, enough to probably do it twice. Kind of set it up to where it's not too tight. I think you guys know how to do this. You can either use a pair of dikes, yeah, I set it, or if you fare on the side of the Perfectionist, you can use a razor blade. So I'm going to do that. Probably still won't be perfectly straight, but easy does it. And just like most things in life, a little bit of spit makes things go on a lot easier. You guys are disgusting. All right, so I know I'm not going to be able to show you the boot clamp down here and why I ended up with it in the furthest most position down, basically pointed at the floor. The reason is these Lectrons have this billet bowl bracket, and really that's the only place for the screw and the 2, I guess, fangs that come off of the clamp to fit. So they're going to live right down in here. You could probably rotate it up, but then it might be hard to hit the screw top down because your tank and stuff is now in the way. So point that sucker at the floor, and then your screw will be pointed basically straight out that direction. Once you get that tightened down, it's time to fill the bowl. It's a Lectron tradition. All right, she's ready for her close-up. Never gets old. All right, guys, we got an air filter in the bike. Now, first and foremost, we're going to go ahead and check our cable slack, and this is a very important sound. I got lucky. That sound? That is the sound of the slide bottoming all the way out in the Lectron. That is a good thing. Now, we want to make sure that that's at least our starting point, because if we were to start the bike right now and the slide was lifted, say from extra tension, and we'll get into that in a second, you might have your bike rev up on you straight away, which is obviously bad for warming it up and other things. So you want to hear that slide bottoming out and the carburetor to start, and that way we know that it's bottomed out, and as we start to turn the idle screw in, it's going to raise the slide and we can find our idle. I don't like to let my 2-strokes idle, loads them up, but I'll still show you that anyways. And then as you steer lock to lock, you want to make sure that all the way to the side, you still have the bottom out sound, same to the other side. The camera stand is actually prohibiting me from turning all the way, but I will be sure to check that. If you don't hear that bottom out sound, both lock to lock, then you need to put a little slack back in your cable. And this is how you would do that. Basically, you have a lock nut here. You'd loosen this up, and you would adjust this outer adjuster in or out to add slack to the cable. You can see I actually have a little bit, and that's what's keeping us from binding at full lock to lock. So you may need an adjustment. Us here today, we're good. We're bottoming out. So next thing to do, start this sucker up and adjust the idle. See how it runs. Again, check for leaks. Oh, and before we do that, guys, check this out real quick. The Lectron now comes with a couple of tuning guides. You scan it with your phone camera, super easy, and 5-step tuning guide on the back. We're kind of going through that anyway, but if you need it, it's there. You're not just going to be in the dark. They also have a lot of good YouTube videos, some of which your boy personally starred in. And also, if you were on the fence for any reason, try it for 30 days. If you don't like it, send it back for a full refund. I don't think anybody else does that. So needless to say, They only throw those in there because you're not going to send it back anyway. All right, guys, we're going to fire this thing up for the first time. All good. Still no leaks. Turn the gas on, and there's a choke knob on the left side, just like any old carburetor. This choke knob on the old Lectron, pre-Billetron, used to be on the far right side, so you'd have to reach over your pipe. It was, how did Lectron put it earlier? Suboptimal. So really welcome change when the Billetron came out to put the choke, I'd say, where it belongs. Let's go ahead and start this thing up, check the idle, show you guys how to set it, all that sort of stuff. I'm interested to see how many kicks it takes because the last carb took a little while. It might have been on the rich side. We're also working with a not so or suboptimal Kickstarter over here. Actually, I'm going to show you guys a trick before we even start. The first time you use one of these, if you get underneath where the vent hoses are, you plug a couple of them, all three of them actually, except for one, and blow in the fourth. That will shoot fuel into the Venturi for the first time. Actually, I can't even reach those, so we're just going to give her some kicks until she lights up. But you could do that if your bike's been sitting up for quite a while. All right, guys, so it started on the second kick. The first kick was even a bit of a fluke. My foot slipped. Not only that, but the butt plug was still installed. Thought it sounded a little muffled, still fired right up. Normally takes the Keihin that was in it about 8 or 9 kicks. Like I said, it was probably a little rich, but impressive already right away. I didn't even do the trick where you blow fuel into the carb's Venturi to like guarantee that first kick start. But that was really cool. That was really, really cool. Like I said, started way faster than the stock carb. Already impressive. Let's go ahead and set the idle. I'll start it again. Right now it's not idling. It'll just chug to a stop. I'll show you guys how to do that. You'll be able to hear it most likely. And then we'll see again how this thing starts. Wow. All right, super easy. I kind of forgot to let it warm up first, so needed to let it get to about 130 degrees, I want to say it was, or higher, and then you actually set the idle. So I jumped the gun a little bit, tried to set the idle before we were up to a temperature where it's appropriate to do so, but let it warm up for a few minutes. As you guys can see, we found the idle. I'll probably get rid of that. Like I said, I don't like them to idle. Maybe I'll try it. Maybe I need to change my ways, but so far that's really good. If you can get this thing to idle, usually means you don't have any air leaks, nothing bizarre. The power off the blip of the throttle already much, much crispier than the old carb. Again, that might have been a little rich, but it ran really, really good. So I had no reason to tweak it or tune it. I'd rather have it barely on the rich side, protect the engine with a little extra fuel and oil than the opposite, wear the piston out a little bit faster, crank bearings, etc. Anyway, so far so good. Really impressed with how fast it starts. Started on the first freaking kick, and it wasn't even completely warmed up yet on that second run. Set the idle very easily. Looks trick as hell. Next step, guys, let's go ride this thing. I cannot wait to try it now more than ever. Guys, that's it. The new Lectron Pro Series is installed. We got the jalopy out of there. Cannot believe how fast this thing starts with the butt plug in, mind you. Second kick on the first run, started right up. First kick on the second run. Started way faster than this carb. Way crisper already. I can feel it in my right hand. So the next step, it's time to take this thing out to Skyline MX, get riding, see how it actually runs. I'm gonna give the idle a shot. Like I mentioned already, I'm not really an idle guy. I don't like to let the bike load up. I'm never really letting it run that long if I'm not actually riding it anyway. So we'll give it a shot, see if I like it. Not exactly sure why I'm still holding this thing. I guess I don't really want to touch it. I'm trying to keep it away from me. Let's hang it up here, back where you came from. Anyways, guys, we're gonna head out to Skyline MX, throw on the gear, fire this thing up, and actually test the new Lectron Pro Series. So I hope you enjoy. I know I'm going to. This might just be the carburetor that gets all of you off the fence and into Lectron, even the guys that talk some smack about it. Maybe it was rightfully so. Maybe you were lazy and you didn't try tuning it before you popped your bike. Whatever the case may be, no hard feelings, it's all good. I have high hopes for this thing already, so let's go test this thing. All right, guys, we made it. We're here at Skyline MX. Check this out. I'm the only person here, first of all. This is the perks of having a gate card. It's 60 bucks a month. You get a gate card, a magnetic card. You can come ride whenever you want. So it's gonna open to the public in like an hour, but I have the luxury of coming in early. And look at this, ripped, watered. This is the brand new, I guess it's the vet track. It used to be called the jack track. Maybe they still call it the jack track, but anyways, it's gonna be perfect for our test today. Really fun. It's got some great jumps in it, really good turns. Some turns you can really kind of rock it out of. So that's what I'm gonna be looking for on this carb. That bottom end is gonna be like the one key thing I'm gonna be all over. So if you guys end up getting your membership, obviously it's worth it for me. 30 bucks per ride or 60 bucks for the whole month. I can film here, I can ride here every week as I already do. They got the jack track. There's some rut track thing here that I've never even noticed. Be something I would drive into and crash. There's a vet track over there, or at least what they used to call the vet track. Main track, I know it's really hard for you guys to see. There is a endurocross section sort of deal in the back, big logs and tires and tubes. There's a circle track, like an asphalt flat track. I think it's asphalt, might be dirt. Past that, there's a UTV course. You can drive your Razors on it, your Raptor trucks, whatever. Then there's a kids track right here. And so they have a ton of land and everything is prepped and watered. So really cool, no wind today, 75 degrees. Sky's beautiful, Idaho's beautiful. Let's have some fun. Trippy guys, that's Idaho for you. 1 minute, beautiful skies. Next minute, you got a quick downpour, a little thunder and lightning. So awesome. All right, guys, she is dead cold. Let's see if the butt plug's out this time. Yep, no butt plug. We don't want to make that mistake again. Hopefully the audio isn't too bad for you guys today. Doing a little test with the mic inside my helmet. Definitely don't want to hear that GoPro wind. Choke is on, fuel is on. Wow, it has literally never done that. It hasn't done that since I've owned it. Choke off. That is awesome. It would start first kick if it was already hot with the old carb. It is so crispy too. I'm genuinely impressed at what's happened so far. Really shocked. Hopefully when we get out on the track, this trend just continues. All right, we'll do a few parking lot tugs first just to kind of feel this out. See that idle. Still pretty cold, probably won't idle yet. But anyways, let's go ahead and do a few tugs. I got the notchiest clutch basket on planet Earth. Thing likes to chatter when it takes off. I should probably do something about that. Oh, it feels good though. Let's see. All right, it's already lighting up a little easier than normal. It just feels like it's been leaned out a little bit to describe it somewhat. All right. I want to listen for any, lean rattle or anything. I don't want to. I'm in like third gear right now. Comes to life very easy with a blip of the clutch. bottom end, I can already tell it is so much more pipey than the other carburetor was. Track needs to break in, very loose still. But under those wide open loads, I'm not hearing any lean rattle or engine chatter, so I'm not lean, that's good. Let's try again. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah, this thing lights up so much faster than the stock carb. It just turns on. A little blip of the clutch, check that idle out now that she's warmed up a little bit. That's with the clutch in. Dude, it purrs. It's never done that either. Really low idle. Feels good, feels real good. Woo! It's loose. So loose. Man, this thing is impressive. I'm excited to see what we can do when the track is easier to scoot around. It's really loose right now. It's half powder wet, half powder dry and half muddy wet. Mother Nature's about to have her way with it too. Look at that. That is so cool looking. Gnarly. Let's go check the main track. Able to adjust this idle with my hand really easily. Really easily. Ooh, look at that. Alright, so both the tracks need to break in. Let's try again. Might be a hair lean, maybe just a little tiny bit lean. Lower that idle. Adjusting that idle is going to affect the metering rod as it gets raised or lowered from doing so. It sounds good, feels good. Ooh, it's getting real windy. Look at that flag. Came out of nowhere. So far, it just feels extra pipey, like a lot more right away in terms of the crispiness of it. Power's relatively close to where it was. I don't expect it to add a ton of horsepower per se. The engine does what it does, but it's a lot crispier than it was. Top back on over here somewhere. It's going to be real hard to get this true test going on if the track doesn't break in, so I guess that's up to me. I'm the only one on this massive track. Woo! It scoots, guys. Track's just really fluffy, so it's hard to get moving. Alright, it's time to go mess with that torque jet circuit. See what's going on with that little guy. Plenty of pep, no doubt about that. Man, so far so good. I can feel this thing as a much more peppy, more responsive by a long shot, but I can't get this rear wheel to stop slipping. Super dry and or super wet and or not broken in yet. It's going to be really hard to get a test in those conditions. So looks like a lot of the guys are on this smaller track. Hopefully that'll help it break in a little better so we can do a little bit more together today. But man, so I was getting like this little intermittent cutout at wide open throttle. Tiny cutout. Now, I'm not exactly sure what that is. I don't know if it's lean or rich or what. I need to tap into that upper external power jet circuit, add a little fuel and see what happens. So as we do this, we only want to do one at a time. So I want to start with this torque jet, this new guy here on the bottom, and see what happens. We'll do some straight line tugs. We'll probably go on the track. What am I talking about? Maybe we'll do both. But we're going to see what happens. So we got a baseline here. I'm going to mark it with a Sharpie and then give it a twist and just see how it feels, if it's any different. So far, this is a definite improvement on the bottom over the Billetron, which I thought was pretty much the bee's knees. So we're getting definitely a better carburetor so far than, like I said, the Billetron, which... so like I said earlier, if it can beat that thing, my mind will be blown. Now we got to figure out the rest of it and just really pay attention. So, oh yeah, we need the Sharpie. What am I doing? Get all wound up when I'm out here riding dirt bikes. All right, guys, can't find the Sharpie. We'll just go ahead and use our brains and our memories, whatever's left of it. So, torque jet. We are going to take it about a quarter turn more open and see what that does. First kick again. Has yet to not start on the first kick. Okay. I think that might have had an effect on the takeoff. Holy shit. Oh, there's that fuel cut. I don't know if it's fuel cut. Let's turn it back in. See what happens now. Okay, so that little quarter turn out gave it a better boost off the bottom for sure. Thing tried to up and wheelie even in this loose stuff. Right now I look like that guy doing parking lot burnouts. I'm gonna try and add a little fuel up top too. Quarter turn at the 50 to 100% range. Power jet. So notice we're only doing one circuit at a time. We don't want to get confused. Still got a little flat spot. Bike is fun. This thing hauls ass. It's crazy. Okay, I couldn't even clear that jump with the old carb. So adding a little bit more fuel up top right there, wide open throttle, helped a lot. It might help with some of that cutout too. I might be a little lean up top. You want to really pay attention to that kind of stuff because you'll blow your bike up. So loose! Woo! I'm gonna add a little bit more fuel up top. I like where we're going with that. But so far we've made, overall, we went richer on the torque jet, the new circuit, and we put it back just to see that we went richer on the power jet up top, the 50 to 100%. I like it. So technically that's the only adjustment we really made. There's another quarter turn, so we're a full half turn, what the hell is that? We're a half turn richer on the PJ, power jet. Is that like a rev limiter? It feels a little, maybe a little flat up top now, maybe too rich. But man, oh my God, right off the bottom, this thing just lights it up. All right, let's put the power jet back in quarter turn. Might need to attack that metering rod next. All right guys, actually moved camp. I was getting dusted out, and this is probably not the next frame you were expecting to see. I've got this very strange cutting out. It's never done it before. I'm not gonna blame it on the carburetor. Just checked my spark boot, and it was coming on and off my spark plug. So whatever retains, or the clip, the positive retention that would normally retain the top of the plug, not working. Busted out old pinky, never lets me down. Kind of squeezed it back together. I get a nice positive click now. So we're gonna try this again. Plug is the old plug. Like I said before, it's a little rich. It's starting to turn a tan brown on the inside. So I think we're in the ballpark with the Lectron. I don't think there's anything wrong with the Lectron. If there is, I'll definitely tell you. There's no doubt about that. But just fixed this spark plug boot. We're gonna get this thing put back together and get back out on the track. I did not like that hesitation. Very odd. This thing is running so much better. It's actually highlighting some issues that I must have had already. Lectrons are really good at that. If you had an air leak, you'd find it with the Lectron. If you're trying to put a carb in your bike because you don't realize your reeds are bad, the Lectron's gonna help you find that easier too. They are really good for whatever reason at sniffing out issues. So I'm back at it. All right guys, so we got the bike back together. Got the spark plug boot nice and tight on the top of that spark plug. Feels a little more crisp here, but I'm having an issue. I'm stumped. I've done a couple adjustments without you guys just to see if I can pinpoint it. No adjustment I make will make the problem go away. Now, it's very strange. It almost seems like a rev limiter, like the bike is losing spark intermittently. Now, the reason I say that is because no matter where I adjust the carb, it doesn't matter. I've been in the metering rod now. I've been in the torque jet. I've been in the power jet. I've done this a couple times. Spark plug looks good. Boot has a good connection. Check this out. I'm pretty stumped right now. And the reason I'm not putting this to the carburetor yet is because it feels better everywhere. It has way more bottom end. It is way more crisp. This is a trip. Still starts right up, first kick. Feels really, really good. So I will do this with, or I have done this with the metering rod in a couple different sections. I've done it with the power jet in a couple different sections or positions. I've done this with the torque jet in a couple different positions. I've done this with the idle high, with the idle low on each of those adjustments. Check out this rev limiter electrical cutout style thing I got going on. Super dangerous, by the way. Throttle is wide open. So the longer I hold it open, the worse the power gets. And I'm getting to the point too where the carburation, due to my adjustments, is very rich. So it's getting sooty, it's getting a little spoogey because I've gone so far to the rich side. So this is not a lean issue from the carburetor, I don't believe. So that was, I think, first gear I showed you guys before. I'll do the same thing, second gear. And before this happens, the bike has really good power, better than it did with the stock carb. Second gear. It's a trip. I was hoping to have a conclusive video for you guys, especially because the way this video started, the way the bike fires up on the first kick, the way it has really good bottom end, the way that torque jet adjustment, just a little one, adds a ton more bottom to this thing. I'm really impressed with it so far. I want to say I'm impressed with it the rest of the way and rule out the fact that whatever issue I'm having isn't specific to this carb. I have used, man, I would be so bummed if that was the case. I have used probably 10 different Lectrons, and I've put them on all of our builds and had no runnability issues with them there either. So probably gonna have a part 2 of this video. So at any rate, hope you enjoyed so far. Now I get to keep you in suspense, and trust me, I'm in suspense as well. Tons of power still, just that flat, I don't know, rev limiter thing going on at the top. Very weird. Anyway guys, let's pack it up, get out of here. I'll see you back at the shop in a minute. We'll talk this over, and I'm looking forward to seeing what your comments are, your helpful comments, of course. All right guys, so I got to thinking about that spark plug. It's not necessarily new, but it's not necessarily old either. I feel like I'm losing spark at high RPM, so we're gonna head back out to the track. We're gonna change the plug, picked up a couple brand new BR8 EGs at AutoZone of all places. Good to know those are always available there, I had no idea. So we'll plop those in, give them a shot, see if this cures our issue. Now, food for thought, I was thinking about this thing. It recently had a top end, fresh gaskets, fresh reeds. I honed the cylinder while it was out. I even replaced some power valve components and cleaned the entire power valve while I was in there. So health-wise, this thing is definitely up to par. Also double checked that we're getting a good vent through our tank vent here. Also double check that we're getting good fuel flow through our petcock down low. Now regarding the new carburetor, it is getting its style cramped big time by whatever electrical issue I have going on. That tiny little adjustment for the new torque jet circuit, thing rocketed out of the gate like a bat out of hell. So I know it wants to eat. I know the bike's healthy. Everything should be good. We just got to rectify whatever's going on. So let's head back out to Skyline, throw a new plug in this thing, and just see what happens. All right, guys, we are back out at Skyline. We've got some fresh spark plugs. We're gonna see if this fixes our issue. Cool to know that AutoZone just has these. A good lesson for me also to just keep some of these in the moto van. We're gonna throw a plug in this thing and see if we can continue this test appropriately. I know there's more inside this carb to offer. You guys can see, and especially myself, after watching footage and editing this video somewhat, you can see that I didn't have the issue at the beginning. So something has failed the further along we've gone in this test. So cool news also, the track is still wet from last night. There's some good ruts. So if this fixes the problem, and hopefully it will, then we'll be good to go. Take a quick look at these side by side. So these do fail. Actually, you can see a bit of an angle on the electrode in this one where the arc jumps and sort of wears the tip of it out over time. So we'll throw a freshie in there, see what happens. Overall, the plug doesn't look exceedingly bad. Pretty normal two-stroke spark plug. You can tell where it was rich with the old carb, and then that nice tan color we're after down in the center of that, but you never know. All right, guys, it's a new day. See what we got. Okay, that's good so far. All right, let's give her a minute to warm up. Take it easy. My old ass needs to warm up too. Track still looks good. Nope. Still got some problems. What is that? Runs good for a second. It's like it runs really, really strong. The bottom end increase is off the charts compared to before. Off the charts. So it's good until it gets to, I don't know, like three quarter to the top. But it could be sketchy. Go to jump something like this, get a little endo. So I got to figure that out. It's not good. Now yesterday, earlier, before it happened, I was jumping this guy and this guy. If I keep the RPMs low, no problem on the bottom. Almost feels like a float height adjustment issue I had on an old carb where I bent the needle valve tang on accident, but that's more like when you land, it'll bog out and then pick back up. So we're going to do a metering rod adjustment since I did mess with that yesterday. Didn't show that to you guys because I needed some time to myself to think about what might be going on. It is better though, so it's also a lot cooler, so maybe heat has a factor in the failure. It's usually the case, electrically or otherwise, but we'll do a metering rod adjustment, and that way you guys can see how it's done, and show you how to do it when you lost your tool, and we'll see what happens. Doesn't do it when there's no load. I wonder if my exhaust valve is fluttering, getting hung up or something and not opening and closing. Very interesting. All right guys, here we are at the workbench. I just have a few really basic tools. We're going to do a metering rod adjustment. You don't need to pull your tank on this model. Maybe some you do. YZ has a similar tank that kind of comes down low, but thankfully it's really easy. So start by loosening your band clamps here. Don't have to take them off, just enough to be able to rotate the carb. Cameron's JIS screwdrivers are getting a workout in this video. So that's your first tool. You need a Phillips screwdriver. Then you just roll this thing over as much as you can. Next tool we're going to use, that 3mm Allen key. Obviously do your best to keep dirt out of your carburetor while you're doing this out in the field. Once you get those screws out, it's a little bit of a shuffle, kind of tight space, but it will come out, at least in my case here. Pull the slide out. Just rotate it whatever direction you need to let it clear the metering rod. So there's that flat side that was facing the engine. I just had a thought. It would be very unusual if it was the case, but I wonder if I have the flat side facing the engine properly, but the slide backwards. I don't think so. I'll look into it. Anyways, normally at this point, if you wanted to adjust your metering rod, you'd have a special tool. It's just this little black dial. It kind of looks like the thumb dial adjusters on the top, except it's got a slot in it for the actual metering rod. You put it on there and you can tighten it upward clockwise, which is going to richen it, or down to lean it out. And basically it's sort of the opposite of the other two. You would go counterclockwise to get more fuel in the torque jet or the power jet, but you would actually turn clockwise inward on the metering rod to richen it. So they are opposite, something to be aware of. Now, since I don't have that metering rod tool, I am going to use a nice blue shop rag and a pair of needle nose, and this will allow a firm grip without damaging the metering rod. It's not super hard to turn, but that's what the tool is for, so that you don't have to go this route like an idiot like me, although you can do it. So I am a half turn richer as of yesterday when I was messing with stuff, trying to see if the carburetor was my problem. So if I want to lean it out, I need to go counterclockwise, 1/2 turn. Now, in order to get the metering rod, assuming that this is not facing the right direction, back to where the flat side is facing the engine, it's got a little spring on top, and then it's held down in like a detent. So you push up and just spin it back, let it drop back down into its spot, and then you'd be facing the engine again. I like to look at it this way. It's a little bit turned still, so we are going to slightly rotate it back just a little bit more. Make sure it's flat. I know you guys can't see it. It's just a minuscule adjustment, but that should be good there. So before we put that back in, I'm going to take a minute and research whether or not I have this facing the right way, the slide. It should be. I don't think that the cable lock goes in that way, or if the slide will even go in backwards. In fact, it can't. I'm looking inside the carb, and this shape here is perfectly matched to the front of this carburetor, the shape inside. And then this back side, the square side, same thing in the back, perfectly shaped to that. So that answers that question. Anyways, just carefully configure this in whatever way you need to in order to get your rod back in the carb, and then continue shuffling until everything gets back in there. You might have to compress this spring a little bit. It certainly is tight quarters, but it can be done without pulling your tank. So that's something I'm grateful for. Go ahead and start that screw just to get that spring from, or keep that spring from shooting everything back out. So I guess if nothing else, we've gone over how to adjust all 3 circuits on this carb in this video, so that's good. Definitely some product highlights in that regard. Spin everything back to the best of your ability as far as straight up and down, and you know, tighten that bad boy up. Now it's starting to rain. Man, it's been an interesting couple days of testing, huh guys? All right, well, we're back at our factory settings, I believe. I'll have to look at my notes, but that's definitely factory settings for the metering rod. And we'll give her hell. Let's check one more thing, guys. Let's check spark. Plug's looking good. Hasn't really even changed color yet. Put your plug back in the boot. Ground the plug out on some metal. I don't even see any spark, to be honest. Let's turn that thing around, get a better view. I know you guys aren't going to be able to see it at all, but I'm looking for spark, obviously. I do have some spark, although it's not very bright. It's very faint. I wonder if that could be the issue. I wonder if I have a coil that's going out. I mean, this stuff is old. This chassis is 06, so this coil is most likely 06. The engine's an 04. The stator inside of that is definitely an 04. I've had that engine in the shop for a long, long time. So this cutout, man, it feels electrical to me. Of course it would happen on a super fun, exciting test day. But you know what? These days give contrast to the super good ones. Help you appreciate them more. Not only that, I'm still out riding. So still having a good time with you guys. Doing a little troubleshooting. I don't have to do that too often, so it's actually a good exercise. Yeah, guys, I won't even start anymore. Something has definitely worn out. Bummer. I want to let this thing eat. It's been getting progressively worse, so that also is not likely to be the carburetor. We got to do some testing. Figure it out. Let's head back to the shop. think I'm done messing with everything I can out here for the day. Thanks for watching anyway. Well guys, what can I say? The minute I loaded the bike up, it actually started raining. It was actually quite fitting for the kind of day we're having. As you can see, the spark plug helped a little bit, but not too much. So we are progressively getting worse and worse. We're having a really weak spark as seen at the track. And I'm so bummed because I want to feel and show you guys the full potential of this carburetor. I know it's there. So guys, in episode 2, which I was hoping not to do, but we're gonna do it, I'm gonna go ahead and start testing electrical components, the stator, the coil, a few other things. So I'll show you guys how to do that. I have an owner's manual and an ohm meter, so it's pretty straightforward. And also, lucky for me, I have another complete RM250 in bins, storage bins. So I already have another stator. I already have another coil. I don't need to shop around. I know that bike was running as well. And this stuff is very old. Some is 04, some is 06, but I do have backups for everything, including another CDI, so we should be good to go. I think that'll rectify our issue. Whatever it is, obviously from the beginning of the video to the end has progressively gotten worse, and now the bike won't even start. So whatever component it is definitely on its deathbed or completely dead now. At any rate, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video so far. Hopefully it's not too much of a letdown. I guess it could always be worse. Your bike's probably running. So stay tuned for our unplanned episode 2, where we peel through this bike, get through all the components, find out what's wrong, and then finally do a real track test with the new Pro Series. In the meantime, don't forget to get signed up on mXrevival.com for our badass MC500 build and giveaway. That's also going to enter you into MX parts and prizes that I give away in every single gas video. You don't want to miss that stuff. We've got some really great MX parts to give away. We've got full decal kits, handlebars, 3D printed moto parts, some no-toil cash, Bolt Motorcycle Hardware Pro Packs, and so much more, guys. I barely scratched the surface. So until next time, shred safe, and I will see you guys very soon.